Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to admit, I had a bit of a moment in the grocery store yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
I was standing in the pharmacy aisle, just trying to buy a basic face cream, and I felt like I was being yelled at by cardboard boxes.
Ah, I know that feeling.
Clean,
Yeah.
natural, organic. It's relentless. From frozen dinners to moisturizer, everything promises this, incredible purity. And look, it works on me. I want to buy the good one.
Of course.
But I stood there holding this $40 bottle of botanical serum, and I just had to ask myself, does this actually work? Or is this just world-class marketing?
That is the eternal tension, isn't it? We want a paradox. You want everything to be pure, simple, straight from the earth, but we also want it to last on the shelf for 2 years.
And smell amazing.
And smell like a tropical vacation and never, ever separate. And usually those two desires, nature and stability, are completely at war with one another.
That tension is exactly why I wanted to cover the research we have on the desk today. We are digging into this comprehensive guide by Laurent Fabian from Ingredientsage.
It just came out January 15th, 2026.
Exactly. It's titled Guide to Brands Prioritizing Organic, Natural, and Clean Label Ingredients in Formulation Development. And honestly, this reads less like marketing and more like a survival manual for brands.
It really is a battle plan. It pulls back the curtain on formulation development, which is the, let's say, the unsexy part of the beauty and food industry.
Right.
It reveals the immense complexity required to take those buzzwords, clean, natural, organic, and turn them into a product that is safe, stable, and actually usable. It's the hard science that makes the pretty label possible.
So our mission today is to strip away that marketing fluff. We want to understand the chemistry, the sourcing, the regulatory minefield that brands have to navigate to put that clean bottle on the shelf.
That's a perfect way to put it, because the real story here is the friction. It's the friction between what you, the consumer, want, which is a label that looks like a recipe card from your grandmother's kitchen, and what chemistry allows in terms of keeping bacteria out and texture consistent.
So let's start with that consumer demand, because 10, maybe 15 years ago, I don't think I was reading the back of a shampoo bottle with a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
We just trusted it was fine. What changed?
Well, the source highlights a major shift in what they call market drivers. It's evolved. Initially, it was just about free from.
Free from, right. Like, does this have parabens?
Exactly. Does this have sulfates? If the answer was no, people bought it. But now it's moved way beyond that to provenance.
Provenance. That's a word I usually associate with, like antique furniture or a fancy bottle of wine. Where did this come from?
And now it applies to your oat milk and your face serum. Consumers aren't just asking what's in it. They're asking, where did this come from? Who grew it? How is it processed?
And that drive for transparency is what the guide calls premiumization.
Which is the industry term for we can charge more for it.
Precisely.
But it's true. If a brand can show a shorter ingredient deck, meaning fewer ingredients, and ones you can actually pronounce, consumers see that simplicity as a premium feature.
A simple label feels safer.
It feels safer, it feels higher quality. The text calls it real food-inspired formulations.
Real food inspired. I like that. Even if it's lotion, we want to feel like we could, arguably eat it. Or at least it wouldn't hurt us if we did.
Exactly.
But there was another phrase in there that felt a bit more psychological. The rituals of consumption. Can we unpack that?
This is a really key insight from Fabian. It suggests that brands have to understand that using a product isn't just functional. It isn't just, does this clean my face?
It's an experience.
It's an experience. It's about how you perceive the choice of ingredients while you're using it. It's the smell, the texture, the story playing in your head while you apply it.
So it's the feeling of virtue. Like I'm doing something good for myself and the planet.
In a way, yes. If you know the lavender in your soap was responsibly sourced from a specific region in France, that changes the experience of washing your hands. It adds this psychological layer.
And for brands, that means you can't just slap a label on it. The source says you have to map your supply chain.
You have to prove it. If you're selling me on a ritual based on purity, you better be able to prove it isn't a lie.
Right, because if I find out that responsible lavender is actually synthetic fragrance from a factory in New Jersey, the ritual is broken, and so is my trust.
Completely broken. And that brings us to the real headache for the brands, proving it all to the regulators.
Okay, this is the part that surprised me. I feel like for a long time the word natural was the Wild West. You could put a green leaf on the bottle and call it a day. Are those days over?
They are rapidly coming to a close. The guide is very clear on this. Regulators are tightening the definitions, the FDA, international bodies. They're all cracking down.
So what does that look like in practice? Can I just say all natural anymore?
Not without receipts. The shift is heavily toward third-party verification and precise disclosures. You can't just make a claim. You have to have someone else, an independent party, back it up.
And the source mentions auditable supplier records. That sounds intense.
It is. It's pure risk management. You need transparent batch documentation. If a regulator walks in, or frankly, if a consumer group sues you, you need to be able to show exactly where batch number 405 came from.
And if you can't?
Then you are walking right into an accusation of greenwashing. The text warns that proactive claim substantiation is the only way to avoid market withdrawals.
Market withdrawal. It's a very polite way of saying a recall.
A very expensive recall.
Yeah.
Imagine having to pull your entire product line off the shelves because you couldn't prove your clean claim. The reputational damage is almost impossible to recover from.
Yikes. Okay, so the legal side is scary. Let's pivot to the science side, because this is where my brain starts to hurt a little bit, but in a good way. The chemistry of clean.
This is the core challenge. This is where the rubber meets the road.
Here it is, the million-dollar question. We use preservatives for a reason. They stop mold and bacteria. If I take out all the synthetic stuff, the parabens, how does the product not just rot?
That is the central conflict. The source details what they call natural preservative strategies. And it's fascinating because they're essentially using nature to fight nature.
Okay, so what are the weapons here?
Well, they list a few specific ones. Rosemary extract is a big one.
Rosemary, like from my kitchen.
The very same, just highly concentrated. Rosemary contains compounds that have potent antioxidant properties. Now, it's important to distinguish here. Antioxidants stop oxidation.
Which is what keeps oils from going rancid.
Exactly. That's different from being antibacterial, from killing the bugs.
Okay, good distinction. So rosemary stops the fats from spoiling. What about the actual bacteria?
For that, they turn to things like tocopherols, which is essentially vitamin E, and ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C. They create an environment where bacteria struggle to survive, and they're increasingly using fermentation.
Fermentation is huge right now. It seems to be the answer to everything.
It's very effective. But here's the catch, and the guide is very honest about this. These aren't magic bullets. There's a massive trade-off. Synthetic preservatives are like nuclear weapons. They kill everything, and they're very stable.
And these natural options?
They're finicky. They can interact with the pH of the product. They can interact with the packaging itself.
Wait, what do you mean with the packaging?
A natural preservative might work great in a glass jar, but fail in a certain type of plastic because it literally absorbs into the container walls over time.
No way. So the formulation process becomes infinitely harder.
Yeah.
You change one tiny thing, and your whole system could fail.
Infinitely. And then there's the texture, because I remember buying some all-natural lotions back in the day.
Oh, yeah. The separated oil, the watery consistency, that weird sticky feeling. They didn't have that slip.
Right. That slip and that luxurious feel usually comes from sophisticated synthetic engineering, like silicones. To replicate that naturally, the source explains brands are turning to things like gums, starches, pectins, and alginates.
Alginates. That's from seaweed, right?
Yes, exactly. They're using these plant-based ingredients to try and rebuild that structural integrity. It's essentially biomimicry, trying to get a plant extract to behave like a synthetic polymer.
That's so cool. It sounds so difficult to get right.
It is. And the same goes for flavor. The guide talks about the evolution from nature-identical options to true natural flavors.
Wait, those sound like the same thing to me. What's the difference?
Nature-identical means it's a chemical synthesized in a lab, but it's molecularly identical to what you find in nature.
So vanilla flavor made in a beaker, but it's chemically vanilla.
Exactly. But for the hardcore clean label crowd, that's not good enough anymore. They want the true extract. They want the authentic profile derived from the actual vanilla bean.
Which brings us back to complexity. A vanilla bean varies from crop to crop. A chemical from a lab is always the same.
Precisely. Every time you swap a synthetic for a natural, you introduce variables. You introduce inconsistency. That's why the guide mentions a smart industry tactic called platform formulations.
Platform formulations. Okay, that sounds like tech speak.
It's borrowed from engineering. Think of it like a chassis for a car. Manufacturers develop a versatile base chemistry, a platform that they know is stable, safe, and preserved correctly.
So they have a clean base they can trust.
And then they can rapidly customize it with different active ingredients or scents. It lets them move fast without reinventing the wheel every single time. It reduces the risk.
That makes so much sense. It's modular design for lotion. Speaking of design, let's talk about the real estate problem. How do they fit all this info on a tiny jar of eye cream?
They don't. They physically can't. And that's where technology comes in. The guide really emphasizes the use of digital tools. We're seeing a massive rise in QR codes and blockchain-enabled traceability.
Okay, buzzword alert. Blockchain. Why do we need blockchain for our shampoo?
Trust. Blockchain creates an immutable record. The data about where the ingredients came from can't be altered later. So when you scan that QR code, it's not just taking you to a marketing website.
It's taking you to the proof.
The goal is to provide batch-level details. You can see when it was made, where the ingredients came from, the whole audit trail. It takes the trust me out of it and replaces it with data.
I love that. And on the label itself, you mentioned clear language.
Yes. Consumers are tired of needing a chemistry degree to buy soap. The trend is to explain why an ingredient is there. Instead of just listing tocopherol, the label might say tocopherol, vitamin E, to maintain freshness.
It's respectful of the consumer. It educates them instead of confusing them.
And that ties into the whole sustainability piece, too. Clean and green are basically siblings at this point. Brands are boasting about regenerative agriculture, packaging reductions, carbon footprints. These aren't just nice-to-haves anymore.
They're part of the core product promise.
Exactly.
So who is actually doing this well? The source gave us some brand spotlights. I'd love to walk through those to see these strategies in action.
Yes, looking at the winners really helps. Let's start with the Honest Company.
Okay, Jessica Alba's company. What's their specific angle?
Their strategy is all about clear labeling and third-party verification. They pair those consumer-friendly ingredient lists with a responsible preservative approach. It's all about making the consumer feel completely safe without having to do the research themselves.
Makes sense. What about Amy's Kitchen? They're a giant in the freezer aisle.
Amy's is the real food approach. Their strategy is straightforward narratives. It's less about fancy science and more about this is food your grandmother would recognize. It's an emotional connection.
Simple. Effective. Okay, now one of my favorites, just for the bottle alone, Dr. Bronner's.
Ah, the ethics leader. Their strategy is fascinating because they don't separate the product from the philosophy. They combine comprehensive labeling with a really strong narrative on traceability and fair trade.
That's true. You buy the soap because you agree with the bottle.
You're buying into a worldview. Then you have Beauty Counter in the cosmetic space, which feels harder.
Much harder. We expect makeup to perform.
It is. The guide calls them the cosmetic benchmark. They use a hybrid preservative strategy, prioritizing natural options where they can. But they're also very certification-driven and transparent, which elevates their credibility.
Okay, two more. Cascadian Farm.
They anchor everything in that organic certification. Their whole story is about sustainable farming. It's all about the land.
And finally, Hain Celestial. They own a ton of different brands.
A ton. And their strategy reflects that. They use a broad certification portfolio to manage risk across a massive product mix. It shows you can do this at scale, but you need a really layered, robust regulatory approach.
So we have the why, the what, and the who. Let's get to the how. The source has a practical playbook. If I'm listening and thinking about launching a clean brand, what does it tell them to do?
It breaks it down to a decision matrix. It says you have to look at every single ingredient through a two-tier lens.
Okay, what are the tiers?
Tier 1 is label claim alignment. Does this ingredient fit my certifications? If I want to be certified organic, does this emulsifier even allow that?
So can I brag about this?
Basically. And Tier 2 is performance impact. Is it safe? Is it stable? Does it feel good? Does it smell good?
Does it work?
Exactly. And you have to balance those two. If it looks great on the label but separates in the bottle, you fail. If it works great but contains a banned preservative, you fail.
It's a tightrope walk. And the guide suggests a three-phase approach.
Yes. Phase 1 is map and audit. Don't formulate a single thing until you've audited your suppliers.
Do your homework first.
Phase 2 is substitute. That's the chemistry part, swapping ingredients. And Phase 3 is pilot and scale. You have to test this in the real world to make sure batch 100 feels just like batch 1.
And that it doesn't turn into a petri dish at months 12.
Exactly. Shelf life testing is crucial.
But here's where it gets tricky for me. Nature is unpredictable. What happens if a drought hits and the lavender crop in France fails? Isn't that a huge risk?
It is a massive risk, and that's why the guide emphasizes smart sourcing. You cannot rely on a single farm. You need multi-source supplier networks.
Don't put all your aloe vera in one basket.
Correct. You need source A, source B, and source C, all ready to go, all meeting the exact same standards. It's about managing chaos, because when you work with nature, chaos is part of the deal.
It really is a different ballgame. The days of just throwing some chemicals in a vat are clearly over.
They are. The bar has been raised.
So bringing this all together, what's the big takeaway here?
I'd say this. Clean label is no longer a trend. It's the baseline. The consumer just expects it now. But success requires that delicate balance between the clean promise and high performance. You can't sacrifice one for the other anymore.
And where are we going next? Any future outlook?
The guide points to some really interesting opportunities. Upcycled ingredients is a big one.
Upcycled?
Yeah, using waste from one process as an ingredient in another. Think using fruit pits from the juice industry to create exfoliating scrubs. It's efficient, and it's a great story.
That's really smart.
And regenerative sourcing. Moving beyond just doing no harm to actually doing good for the ecosystem. Restoring soil, capturing carbon, it's the next frontier.
It's fascinating how much technology and data are becoming part of something that's supposed to feel so natural.
That is the paradox, isn't it? To be truly natural at scale, you need incredibly high-tech solutions.
It makes you think. We talked about transparency being the baseline, and you mentioned these digital tools. It leaves me with this thought. If transparency is the new normal, how long is it until every single product we buy has a digital passport?
A passport that shows exactly which farm every ingredient came from.
Exactly. Not just sourced in the USA, but grown by Farmer John on Tuesday. Imagine scanning your shampoo and seeing the face of the person who harvested the lavender. It feels like we are inching closer to that every single day.
I think we are. And brands that aren't ready for that level of visibility are going to be left behind.
Well, next time you're in that pharmacy aisle staring at the labels, you'll know exactly what went into getting that bottle onto the shelf. It's a lot more than just a pretty sticker.
Indeed it is.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you on the next one.